Okay, everyone, welcome to another Talking Geeky Stuff video with me, Tenchi, as your host. Well, the only host. So, what is the topic today? And you probably noticed I haven't done my introduction of Tenchi based on the character by Tenchi Muyo because I tend to do, well, I've done it the first 3 videos already, so I think that should be enough. If this is your first time on this video, you can always go back and check my first 3 videos. First one, video games. Second one was film and TV, Star Wars. Third one was about anime. But if you do check the first one, there was a sound issue. Hopefully it got better as time went along. I'm hoping this fourth one will be even better. I'm learning as I play along. Also, a reminder, when this is unscripted, I don't have any notes. I just talk top of my head. So I will get some time and dates and maybe names wrong. So that's all the fun. Pretty spontaneous. So what is today's topic? Let's have a look. Whoops, what was that? Oh, my PowerPoint. So, it's about comics. The top 4 geeky subjects I like. So I spoke about 3 already. Games, film and TV, anime, now comics. So we'll be talking a bit about Marvel, DC, a bit of Dark Horse, Image and Valiant. And mostly about during the 80s to the kind of mid-90s, the golden age, or in my time, golden age. You know, the superstars of comic books back then, like Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld or Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, comics like that. So I hope here's some of the comics I quickly put together in this comic style presentation, that comic little strips. You can see some of them there. You got back in the 80s, late 80s, when Jim Lee did Uncanny X-Men with Chris Claremont, one of the best times for X-Men. The writing, some complain it was too confusing because all the X-Men characters are all over the place. And then, of course, I think, if I'm correct, 89, I think, introduction of Gambit, created by Jim Lee there. And then, of course, you had Todd McFarlane doing The Amazing Spider-Man, which was one of the best-selling Marvel comics. You know, he was probably to this day the best artist for Spider-Man. He really kind of captured the Spider-Man essence and so on. Then you had Incredible Hulk, probably my favorite Marvel character. I always liked Incredible Hulk because I think I got into Incredible Hulk when Peter David was writing Incredible Hulk. He was a fantastic writer, and then of course during that time you had many good artists like Dale Kuhn. He did an amazing Incredible Hulk, and then followed by Gary Frank. And then I can't remember who was after Gary Frank. I think it was Liam something. Can't remember his name, but Peter David was an amazing artist. Not artist, I mean amazing writer. So you had some really good writers doing some of the best comics. And of course Marvel was shifting so much comics, of course. And you had Rob Liefeld doing New Mutants. He kind of revamped that. You can see the cover added there was the first appearance of Deadpool. He created that character, become one of the most popular characters now because of 2 movies. I still got that comic. I wonder how much that's worth now. Also the introduction of Domino there as well. He kind of brought New Mutants back. Also created Cable. Cable become a great character as well. And then you had Uncanny X-Men and other X-Men. I can't remember what the other X-Men was about. I think, I said Mark Silvestri did the Wolverine. He did a fantastic Wolverine. He gave a kind of like really down and dirty kind of Wolverine, which was great. Then you had people like, I don't have his books there, but like Eric Larson also did other Spider-Man titles as well. Yeah, and of course Marvel was rolling with money. They're selling hundreds of thousands of comics every week, all titles. I remember seeing if you remember the Wizard comics or Wizard magazine, you always see around that 89 to about 92, 93. Marvel was killing in sales as well. It's top 5 or so was Marvel comics. And then I remember there was a big thing happening in the 90s where Spider-Man had a brand new story, number 1. Then they create X-Men, you know, and so on. Then these guys were like rock stars of their time. And then so so Spider-Man was McFarlane, and then of course Amazing Spider-Man went to Eric Larson, if I'm correct. Then of course Jim Lee went from Uncanny X-Men to X-Men, and Mark Silvestri carried on with X-Men, or Uncanny X-Men. Peter David was carrying on with his amazing writing with Incredible Hulk. Yeah, and then of course over here, then of course you got DC Comics as well. You always get that kind of rivalry between DC and Marvel. Me personally, I was always overall Marvel comic book fan overall. But as in saying that, when it comes down to graphic novels, DC was head above shoulders above Marvel. I mean, you can see in one of my pictures I got Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Bob Boland, who did the artwork, which was fantastic. Not Bob, I Brian. When I say Bob, Brian. Fantastic. I know a lot of people, when they talk about greatest story, was you had Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Amazing story, amazing. But I was always a sucker for Killing Joke, because when I was younger at that time, reading it, I felt that I appreciate Frank Miller's Dark Knight more later on in life, I think, because at that time I found it was just too much text. Because I always found that comic books, that's what I liked about Killing Joke. There wasn't that much writing. The story and the artwork told itself. And I think it lends Alan Moore's writing with the artwork and the setting. The colours were brilliant. It kind of meshed together very well. When I remember reading the Dark Knight Returns, I just remember going, okay, this is great. I like his artwork. Frank Miller's art was quite gritty. I know that Zack Snyder's a big fan of Dark Knight Returns. I think a lot of people are considered one of the greatest Batman novels of all time. But I just feel there's certain bits where there's too much text. I didn't have to read it because the actual artwork explained the scene. You didn't have to write it. That's just my opinion. But of course, reading it recently is a lot better now than it was back then. Then, of course, another great book by Alan Moore, Watchmen, back in the mid-80s. Another great story. My only complaint was, even when I was younger, I didn't like the artwork that much. I wish they could keep exactly the same story, but maybe jazz it up with maybe like a Jim Lee artwork or something like that. And then of course Superman Red Sun, another great novel there, graphic novel. Definitely check it out. And you can see that the two Jim Lee covers by X-Men and Justice League very similar. One's fighting Magneto, one's fighting Apocalypse. Is it Apocalypse? No, not Apocalypse. Oh my God, what's his name again? He lives on Apocalypse, the planet. Oh my God, what's his name? I'm blanking out. What's that bad guy's name? It'll come back to me later on. Doomsday. Not Doomsday. That's the one that killed Superman. What is his name? I totally forgot. You know what? I'm going to have to check the internet for that. I'll get back to you. But anyway, man, I can't believe I blanked out of one of the big bads on DC Comics. Anyway, like I said, this is just spontaneous talk, no scripts and anything like that. Then, of course, I was saying, so when it comes down to monthly comics, I always prefer Marvel. And as for graphic novels, I think DC was above them. Then, of course, I remember the big hoo-ha when all the superstars like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson, a few others left Marvel and joined or created a company called Image Comics. Then you got Wildcats, Spawn, Cyberforce, just to name a few. Of course, Rob Liefeld did Youngblood, which is alright. I found out of all the artists that went to Image, I always found that Rob Liefeld being the weakest one. Don't get me wrong, I think Rob Liefeld is, his comics are great. He's got great creativity. I always found that when it comes down to artwork and story and characters, I always found he was the weakest one out of all of them. But then again, when I say weak, he was still amazing. But you had Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, even someone called, do you remember Worst Potasio? He also jazzed up X Factor as well. He did a really good X Factor. I think he did one of the best Archangels I remember seeing. So was Potential. Then of course, let's not forget about later on. You had like another like a second set of artists that came along after Jim Lee and so on. Like you had Travis Charest. If you haven't heard of Travis Charest, check out his artwork. That guy is amazing. He's got so much detail as well. That's why his comic books takes so long to get made. So Travis Charest. You also got who else? I'm blanking out again. Anyway, they come back to me sooner or later. And of course you got Spawn here by Todd McFarlane. That was pretty good. It kind of got boring. I got up to about 1 to 50 issues. Then it kind of got boring. And then of course Greg Capullo took over. I think McFarlane kind of took him from Marvel. He was doing X-Force, I think, that time. Speaking about X-Force, there you go. New Mutants evolved into X-Force with the help of Rob Liefeld. Then, of course, Wildcats. It's funny how these artists from Marvel, starting in Marvel, and jumps over to create their own company, they have a lot of mirror their own success. Wildcats is kind of like the X-Men, of course. Spawn, Solo, Superhero, Spider-Man, Cyberforce by Mark Silvestri. Like, he did Uncanny X-Men. And I remember whenever there was a team that got created, right, you always had a couple of tropes, a couple of characters that was always kind of like, you always had to have the Wolverine character, right? In Cyberforce, you had Ripclaw. In Wildcats, you had Warblade, right? You see? Then you always had that kind of cocky attitude, like the Gambit as well. Then you had like Grifter from Wildcats. You had that kind of leader. So, so you had these kind of characters that always kind of transfers over, the Wolverine, the kind of cocky, arrogant, kind of Gambit kind of character, and so on. So yeah, so speaking about artwork, I used to really enjoy, don't get my studio, Todd McFarlane. He probably still does the best Spider-Man overall. Then me and my friend used to argue, I won't say argue, but debate, friendly debate. He was a better artist. He was a Jim Lee fan because he was more of an X-Men fan. I was kind of backtracking between Spider-Man and Hulk, but overall Hulk was still my favorite. And I was always team Todd McFarlane. But as I got older, I realized I prefer Jim Lee. Jim Lee, when he went to DC, he did Batman, he did Superman. I think overall, as a comic book artist, I think Jim Lee's and Travis Charest is two of my all-time favorites, I would say. Jim Lee just makes everyone look so cool. He does men, looks cool, girls, females are sexy. But I don't know how the artwork, his artwork, if he stuck to, if you look at some of the artwork, you had men that are 6 foot, 6-pack, 8-packs, women with their kind of skimpy outfits fighting in space. I don't know how the modern day will see some of these artwork, how they will transfer now without someone on Twitter exploding, saying this is not real interpretation of people. But at the end of the day, the comic books, right? They're superheroes. I remember I was reading I don't know what it was, some article about complaining about why Captain America was so muscular and everything like that. Why can't it be more realistic? And I remember reading an article why saying, why is Goku from Dragon Ball so muscular? And I was thinking, well, first, Captain America's a super soldier and he trains a lot. His serum actually, helps him with that. And that's for Goku, why he's got a six-pack. That guy trains all his life. If you go out there and start training martial arts all your life, lifting weights, you will get fit as well. So, and being a superhero, you can have to train to fight crime, right? That means you train, you work hard, you will get physically fit. I don't want to sound bad or anything, but if you get someone who's, say, 5'4", 200 pounds, trying to jump out like Spider-Man, I don't think it's very convincing. You know what I'm talking about? So, and plus it's a comic book, it's all made up fantasy. Whenever someone, speaking from an artist's point of view, when I draw something, I kind of draw like an alter ego about yourself. I wish I was 6 foot plus, 6-pack, chiseled chin. You kind of draw that down as it's like just an alter ego of your kind of persona, really. Speaking about that. So I don't know how comics today will to see some of the artists back in the 90s and so on. And of course, you had other, not DC and Marvels are the two biggest one. Of course, I got into Image for a bit, for a couple of years. Then I kind of went downhill. Of course, I think Jim Lee created Wildstorm. Wildstorm got part of DC now. Then of course, there's also these offshoots like Dark Horse Comics. I used to love Dark Horse Comics, and I still buy a couple of them. I don't buy I do buy them. I don't buy physical comics no more. I just download them on my iPad or my tablet because I don't have space. I still got about 5 boxes of comics, a collection of those. So I put all my stuff on my tablet. So you're speaking about Dark Horse. I remember how I got into Dark Horse when I did the Terminator, they did Predators, they did Alien versus Predator, the first few season or episodes or season or part 1 of 5. They were fantastic books. Then they had the RoboCop one. Then they had RoboCop versus Terminator. They were good. I remember when we were kids, right? Teenage kids, right? You'd watch RoboCop, you watch Terminator. You'll have like debates. Oh, who was tougher, RoboCop or Terminator? Alien versus Predator. So they kind of fulfilled that kind of fantasy matchup, you know. So Dark Horse, another one. And then there was a time I was into Valiant Comics. It kind of got introduced through Image when they did a crossover with I think it's called Deathmate. You know, and it was a bit messed up. I remember reading in Wizard, there was like, because Image was notorious back then was delaying comics. Like a monthly release sometimes gets released every 2 months, every 3 months, because of the colouring and the quality of the paper and the artwork took quite a long time. And you know, the artist was in control of both publication and everything like that. I remember, reading Deathmate as a crossover. I know the scheduling problem on the Image side introduced me to Valiant for a bit. Remember, you know, the first crossover was like with Wildcats and so on, introducing a character called Solar, I think. And there's a little romance between Solar and Void from Wildcats. He didn't last that long. No, he was pretty good the first few. I think I had about a year or so of Valiant, and then kind of died off. I don't read much comics nowadays. I mean, I got loads of comics on my tablet, and I go back and really start reading them. Like I started reading classic recently, some of the Peter David Hulks, Spider-Man, some of the classic Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men, Chris Claremont X-Men. Of course, recently read The Dark Knight. That's why I said that Dark Knight was a lot better read now than, say, 15, 20 years ago. Of course, I only just recently read The Red Sun, Superman Red Sun. My friend recommended me that a couple of years ago. Definitely read that. And I started reading a lot of classic Image again, like the first few first few issues of Spawn, Wildcats, Cyberforce, and even Life of Youngblood is pretty good as well. So this is just some of the comics I'm interested in. And speaking about comics, some of the modern comics, it isn't that good. I don't know what happened to it, but some of the artwork has gone downhill. The characters are boring. And also I think they always revamping issue one is a bit confusing. I think things like that. And of course, but you know, comic is of course nowadays. I mean, back then they were selling hundreds and hundreds of thousands of comic books per month, right, or per week. Nowadays, what is it now? They'd be lucky to top 20,000 if they're lucky. I mean, I think Marvel is just lucky that their movies are doing so well. It's kind of keeping the comic book side of things afloat, you know. So I just feel that I think that comic books are dying because I haven't read it because I think you need to have good characters. You know, that's one thing. I think that comic books is an escapism, just like all the things I've been talking about, games, anime, all that stuff. It's just escapism. You know, we deal with life every day. I mean, look what we're dealing with now, the pandemic. We deal with life every day. And the last thing you want to do is when you read a comic, and a comic's lecturing you about you need to do more for the environment. You know, your sexes, your races, you know, you have to vote. You have to hate Trump, Donald Trump, for example. You have to vote this. I think people are just sick and tired of being told that. You know, I just want to read a comic to escape the real world. You know, like, I mean, come on, you're reading Superman from a different planet. He flies, super strength. You know, you got Thor. He's a god. Spider-Man, bit by a spider. You know, people just want to have escapism. do things that's fantastical, and not stop and not be lectured on the daily lives of things. You have to do this, you have to do this. If you don't, you'd be classified as a racist, sexist, or whatever whatever the trend is nowadays, you know. So, you know, if if any publishers reading out there, seriously, just stop it. Just focus on good storytelling, good characters, you know, and maybe make characters earn their weight, you know. Like, for example, so stop OPing Captain Marvel. I know that Marvel is trying to, you know, make Captain Marvel like the new leader of Avengers and everything like that. I prefer Captain Marvel when she was Miss Marvel. She had more of a story then, and now you're just kind of like. Now I heard that she's got new powers, making her one of more like Doctor Strange powers. I mean, as if she's not powerful enough, right? That made her even more powerful, then more powerful. You know, stop OPing these characters for no reason. It's just gonna kind of like have a backlash. What they need to do, you need to have real struggles if you want to relate to people. Look at Peter Parker. He got bit by a Spider-Man when he was 15 years old. He spent the first few years practicing how to be Spider-Man, makes mistakes. You know, he causes the death of his uncle. That made him into a superhero. It was a big trauma like that caused him to make a superhero. Every time he fails, it hits him, it bites him hard, you know. Because that's what real superheroes are about, you know, learning from their mistakes, learning about their powers, growing with powers, you know. And look at Wolverine, you know, he was Weapon X, he was a murderer, and then he met the X-Men. All the characters around him pacified him, made him belong into a team, you know, made him sympathize with the world, made him stronger, not physically stronger, as Wolverine's always been stronger, but mentally stronger, you know. Because Wolverine, if you remember, like in Weapon X, he wanted to die, he wanted to commit suicide, but he didn't want to be in the world. But the strength was his teammates and so on. Look at Batman, you know, the greatest detective, one of the greatest superheroes of all time, has no powers. You look at the, you know, when you look at some of the year one books, he learns how to be Batman. He makes so much mistakes, but he learns. And that's what people gravitate to, is learning and failing, learning and failing. You know, you just can't just make them OP, give them some political background, and then if they don't like it, you just turn around and say, oh, you're racist or you're sexist and don't buy my books. You know, if you're going to say don't buy my books, we ain't going to buy your books no more. And then when we don't buy the books, you turn around, you blame us again. So it's kind of like a double ending, you know, like a endless cycles of things, right? So just focus on character, good story, give them trials, let them learn, let them fail. That is what life is about, really, right? If you're going to talk about real life, struggles is fundamental of life. Anyway, let me just wrap it up here. Thank you for listening to me rambling again about comics, and see you everyone on the next chapter, which I don't know what it's about yet. Stay tuned. Thank you very much. Stay safe, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you're in the world. Thank you.